Rotary in Western North Carolina is celebrating 100 years of service above self, and it began right here in Asheville, North Carolina in 1915. Over our history, we've sponsored the creation of 10 clubs in the district, have been the host club for 9 district governors, 3 Rotary International directors, generated literally hundreds of Paul Harris Fellows, and 1 international president. What we will share tonight has been created and repeated by all 51 clubs and the 2,400 Rotarians in District 7670. While this is our story, it represents a multitude of stories from each club and each Rotarian around the world. Our story is not unique, but highlights some of the examples of Rotary in action and represents what we all know. The world is a better place through the efforts of Rotary. Our journey tonight begins in 1914. Let your minds take you back to that era. Rotary International was nearly 10 years old and expanding. Locally, 9 men of character and influence met over lunch in December of 1914. They represented insurance, a creamery, sheet metal manufacturer, a utility, construction, optometrist, attorney, office supply, and a laundry. How ironic that this laundryman founded Swannanoa Laundry. Here I am, president during the centennial year, representing 100 years of continuous service to Rotary by our company, now known as Swannanoa Cleaners. I was sponsored into the club by Brittany Smith, a member since 1966, the grandson of club founder Caney Brown, the laundryman. Some things come full circle. This is where our journey begins. Joining us now is George Lee, who served as the first president of the club in 1915.
Good evening. Asheville was a significant city in the state of North Carolina, a bustling town of 25,000, yet still a rural region. In my time, we had a trolley system with school children, future Rotarians no doubt, occasionally greasing the trolley wheels so the trolley couldn't pull the hill in the Montfort area. Autos were now mixing with horses. In my Rotary Club, a membership of 49, began a history of service. Rotary soon promoted widening the thoroughfares, paving roads, and we sponsored public restrooms. Here in Asheville, the big news was the untimely death of George Vanderbilt, the owner and creator of the Biltmore House, just this past spring. His estate passed to his daughter Cornelia and her husband John Cecil. The world watched the activities in Sarajevo as a precursor to World War I. Asheville was now becoming involved in the world stage. Kiffin Rockwell was a local Asheville High graduate who stopped his higher education studies and went to France. He joined the Lafayette Escadrille, and in May 1916 was the first American to ever shoot down an enemy aircraft. He served for 5 short months, and Kiffin was killed, the second American to ever die in air combat. Many other Ashevilleans joined up during the war years, including one Charles Buzz Tenney. Also momentous was a disastrous flood in 1916. Hurricanes across Puerto Rico and up the southeast ravaged the region. Railroads and highways washed out, mountain communities cut off, devastated, with Asheville and the Biltmore areas the hardest hit. The railroad estimated over 80 were killed, most in our French Broad River watershed. By your dollars, the damages exceeded $500 million. I knew Kathleen Carter, a young 17-year-old who lived in Biltmore Village. She was washed with 2 nurses into the trees and rubble trying to get to high ground. Over 9 hours clinging, she saw the nurses washed away, and then her father, in an attempt to save her, was also washed away. 10-foot floodwaters. She was finally saved by a fellow with a rope and tied to a maple tree. She survived and lived to the age of 90. Now that maple tree is still standing 100 years later. You may have seen it. As you enter the lodge gate at the Biltmore Estate, it's the third maple on the right on the Swananoa River. Well, what's the difference with this disaster? Rotary was there, offering those to those displaced, feeding and clothing those who'd lost all, arranging shelter for families, actively raising money, and established a campaign for the relief of flood victims. The Boy Scouts had a modest presence in the region by 1920. Rotary in Asheville hired the first Boy Scout executive for the Daniel Boone Council. Then Rotary contributed and built the lake at their camp, Daniel Boone. Over time, the Rotary Club and the Scout Council has worked together to promote youth leadership, engaging youth to participate. We've held Rotary work sessions that created the amphitheater seating, renovated and improved the camp structures. In our region, a need for health services for children crippled by polio was identified in 1926. Rotary partnered with the Junior League, and we began treating children with disabilities with roaming clinics. This evolved to a permanent location, and by 1938, the clinic organizers had a 40-acre facility, the Asheville Orthopedic Home. Today, you know it as Care Partners, a nonprofit serving over 3,000 patients a day, 1,100 employees serving the region from their Asheville headquarters, located on Rotary Drive. During the war years in the 1940s, Rotary recognized that minorities were severely underserved for medical care. In 1943, with Rotary's support, the Negro Hospital in Asheville was established. It opened and served those in need. This facility, after many mergers, is now Mission Health System, the 6th largest health system in North Carolina, and continues to serve all citizens. Well, my club was honored by having a member nominated and selected to lead Rotary International. One extraordinary member who grew up in Asheville, educated at UNC Chapel Hill, was class president, played basketball, editor of the university newspaper, and in his spare time, he mentored Thomas Wolfe. Later in life, he published The Little Lessons of Rotary. He returned to Asheville and experimented on career choices. He found his calling in the nursery business. In time, his signature job was landscape and design of the UNC Asheville campus. He joined our club in 1935. In 4 years, club president. 4 more years, district governor. Then he was active in international with several responsibilities, including expansion. Let me continue our journey by introducing you to the president, Rotary International, 1957-58, Charles Buzz Tennant.
I remember it well. I was home with my wife, Jess, when the phone rang. It was chairman of the Rotary International Nominating Committee. He asked if I would accept a nomination to serve as president of Rotary International. I remember saying, "Can't you fellas do better than that?" Little was I aware of the incredible journey that lie ahead. At the RI convention in Dallas, Texas, it was of course mandatory that I deliver a message to all of Rotary as incoming president. Now just relax. I'm not going to give you the entire message, maybe just a few highlights or excerpts. The emphasis is on you, Mr. Rotarian. Now wait a minute, this is 1957. 1957. The emphasis is on you, Mr. Rotarian, For you are the one who must give expression to the ideal of service by living it, by daily translating it into your life and the lives of others. Rotary can only be what you want it to be. Rotary can only achieve what you want it to achieve. And that's why, Mr. Rotarian, the emphasis is on you as we move forward to another year of service to mankind. Serving as president of Rotary International provided Jess and I an extraordinary opportunity to view and visit the world and truly understand the positive influence that Rotary provides. Here I am, a nurseryman from Asheville, North Carolina. I grow and sell plants. I design landscapes. I always like to say I paint pictures with plants. And as president, I've seen the landscape of the world, and it is beautiful. Although my active participation in Rotary has now passed, in spirit, I continue to watch and enjoy the activities of the club. I was honored by the establishment of the tenant gardens at the UNC Asheville campus. I rejoice every year as I see that little work group of Rotarians continue to expand and nurture the garden. As any organization evolves, particularly as Rotary has, you always will hear, what would so-and-so have done? What would Buzz Tennant do? What would Buzz Tennant say? What would he ask? Buzz Tennant would have asked 3 questions. How's the food? Does that sound familiar? What are all the women doing here? And what's your next project? Speaking of women, in the late 80s, I remember sharing with Jess, well, Rotary International is going to allow women in Rotary. And Jess quipped, it's about time. I really didn't like being called a Rotarian. Indeed, she didn't. And she was not alone. Our club was excited and curious when the first woman, Margaret Gormley Chapman, was inducted into our club in 1988. She and others have served as president of our club. Carol King became the first district governor in our district, 7670. And I see the president-elect for the club's 101st year is a woman, Donna Inslee. It was good earlier this evening seeing 2 longtime members who were in the club with me, George Cecil and Bill Haggard. George is the longest active member of the club, 63 years. He was preceded in the club by his father, John Cecil. John Cecil's classification was estate manager. And I always thought there was no classification that could top that, estate manager. And Bill Haggard is a member for 48 years, a past president, past district governor, and is going to be celebrating his 94th birthday tomorrow. Congratulations, Bill. I rejoiced when the club raised funds and acquired an ambulance that they were going to ship to Huehuetenango, Guatemala. Little did they know the difficulty in delivery. The club needed to store it somewhere until it could be shipped. A member who was an attorney, and that's important, stores the ambulance in his barn. Well, the club's annual picnic rolls around before it can be shipped. The picnic's held at a public pavilion that the Rotarians in the area built. So the attorney decides to drive it to the picnic so all the members can see it. Attorney driving ambulance. What's wrong with that picture? But it gets better. At picnic, someone decides to answer the age-old question, how many Rotarians can you get in the back of an ambulance? Alcohol may have been involved. 22 Rotarians pack in. 22. Well, while this is going on, a jogger runs by, has a medical difficulty, sees the ambulance, comes over for help, opens the door, and sees 22 Rotarians all holding a beer. Fortunately, a doctor was in the group and administers medical attention. The moral of this story is throughout Rotary, while providing service above self, you can still have a whole lot of fun. Through the years, the club has been providing scholarships to young people, fostering literacy in elementary schools, supporting youth exchange programs with countries all over the world, established a friendship exchange with the Semur Rotary in France, built multiple habitat houses over the years, packaged over 1 million meals for the Rotarians Against Hunger program, sent a brigade of Rotarians to Honduras for 8 consecutive years to provide dental and medical care to one of the most needy locations in the world. And who cannot be aware of every Rotarian's effort in every Rotary Club in the world for embracing the fight to eradicate polio? We are this close. And by the way, who's this Bill Gates guy? One thing, though, that has remained abundantly clear, in Rotary, no successful project has ever been completed without teamwork. And so, as someone once said, it's not the men, nor the armament, nor the Army as a whole, but the everlasting teamwork of every bloomin' soul. Never has teamwork been demonstrated more than in recent years when past President Bob Haggard became aware of a gentleman, Jeff Miller, from a neighboring city who just happened to own a laundry business. What's with these laundry guys? Who felt that many of the greatest generation veterans could not get to Washington, D.C. to see the World War II memorial. Honor Air was formed. Our club hosted the first 3 flights, partnered in 3 others, supported the district with 10 flights to Washington, D.C. that included flight leadership by our current district governor, Gary Bray. Over $580,000 was raised and almost 1,400 veterans were served. Many of the veterans remarked with tears in their eyes, they considered their Honor Air flight to be the best day of their lives. Well done, Rotary. Well done. So that's our story. That's been our journey. I like to think of Rotary as a great forest of living trees spreading around the world, springing up here and there, at home and at abroad, wherever there is fertile soil for the seeds of Rotary to grow. And there is no better seed bed than in the hearts and minds of Rotarians of goodwill and understanding. And that's why the emphasis is on you. Yes, the emphasis is on you, and as long as you are a Rotarian, it will always be on you, because you know, you understand, you are concerned, and you care. And you just can't ask for any more than that. Thank you for letting us share our journey, and to you, President-elect Ravi, and to every Rotarian here, may your Rotary journey be as fulfilling as ours. Thank you very much.